Düşmanlarımıza hodri meydan diyoruz.
Neothemanikon ideologimάτων.
Näher auf den Abgrund zubewegt, der kann irgendwann dann auch hinunterfallen.
Greece and Turkey have never been on very good terms. They fought 4 major wars since the late 1800s. And that's just in modern times. And now they seem to be on the brink of war, again. What is it this time? Not oil, not a pair of very small uninhabited islands. This time, it's what parts of the sea they control, and what's underneath that sea. For many years, Turkey's economy has grown exponentially. The bigger your economy, the bigger your energy bills. Trouble is, Turkey does not produce a lot of energy. So it buys oil and gas imports from Russia, Azerbaijan, and Iran. A lot of oil and gas. Not ideal. So the Turkish president has been looking for resources all over his country, even under the seabed. In 2020, Turkish ships hit the jackpot.
İşte Rabbim bize bambaşka bir yerde hem de görülmedik zenginlikte bir kapı açtı.
320 billion cubic meters of natural gas in the Black Sea. That's equal to about 128 million Olympic-sized pools. It's around how much natural gas Turkey would consume in 10 years.
The find was in the Black Sea, unlike the Eastern Mediterranean, which is riddled with all kinds of geopolitical problems.
But of course, you can't have too much of a good thing. Turkey wants more. So they started exploring in, you guessed it, the Eastern Mediterranean. Naturally, the neighbors, Greece and Cyprus, not happy. Well, the neighbors have not been happy with each other for a long time. Centuries, actually. Turkic people invaded the Byzantine Empire in the 11th century, and ever since, Greeks and Turks have had a history of territorial fights and lots of bloodshed.
Trouble again in Cyprus. The National Guard, charged to keep the peace between the Greek majority and the Turkish minority.
The latest full-on conflict dates back to 1974. It had only been 14 years since Cyprus was free from British rule. Cypriot Greeks and Turks had started fighting each other. The UN was trying to manage that with a peacekeeping mission set up in 1964. On July 15, 1974, Greece's military regime overthrew the Cypriot president, Archbishop Makarios III.
The Greek junta has extended its dictatorship to Cyprus.
The idea was to make Cyprus part of Greece. But 5 days after the coup, Turkey invaded Cyprus, saying it wanted to protect the Turkish Cypriot minority. This gave the impression that the Greek military regime was weak, and it fell soon after, making Greece a democracy once again. Dreams of uniting Greece and Cyprus also fell apart. But that didn't stop Turkey, which had, by then, taken over another third of the island.
The attack began shortly before 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the time when the official ceasefire began. Outside, people queued up to read the casualty lists for news of friends and relatives.
That area became the de facto state of the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus, which is recognized only by Turkey. Half a century later, that's how this situation remains, frozen, with the UN blue helmets still on the ground. Fast forward to present day. Turkey's behavior in the Mediterranean has been, well, aggressive lately. It deployed drilling ships along Navy escorts, Turkish warplanes buzzed an area near the Greek island of Rhodes, and warship escorted a vessel suspected of smuggling arms to Libya, then readied for battle when challenged by the French Navy. All this, of course, brings up past grievances. In December 2019, a high-ranking Turkish diplomat tweeted about Ankara's plan for the Mediterranean. The plan marks out Turkey's sea borders, including a border deal with Northern Cyprus, again, a state that only Turkey recognizes. The other problem is that the tweet also draws borders past Greek and Cypriot waters. Especially, past this group of islands.
This island is just 2 kilometers away from Turkish coast, just 10 square miles, but Greece demands 40,000 square kilometers of maritime area for this small island.
So this tiny island, less than 500 people live on it. And since it's a Greek island, Greece has a right to a lot of the waters around it. This upsets Turkey. It feels that one Greek island, so close to its coast, should not have all this Greek water around it. And the two neighbors are again irreconcilable.
European Union should act. There are no other parties that are able to force these two countries to negotiate and settle.
But the EU is part of the dispute, along with NATO. How's that? See, both Greece and Turkey are NATO members. Technically, military allies. Greece and Cyprus are EU member states. Turkey's not EU, and Cyprus isn't in NATO. But EU ties are stronger, and Greek and Cypriot borders are by definition the EU's borders as well. But the EU doesn't really stand up to Erdogan, even though his claims impede on EU territory. That's because he has a trump card up his sleeve. The migrant crisis. The EU has a deal with Erdogan to manage the flow of asylum seekers coming into Europe, but the burden lies mostly on Turkey, which is home to the world's largest refugee population. About 4 million refugees and asylum seekers, mostly Syrians fleeing the war. So, if Erdogan doesn't like something the EU does, he can open the borders and let migrants enter Europe, a lot more than they're getting through right now.
It was the Turkish president who said the European borders are open. They are not open.
And who's impacted the most if Erdogan makes good on this threat? Greece. For now, international law is on Greece's side. Athens said it wanted to legally extend its territorial waters from 6 to 12 nautical miles. But if it does that, Turkey will see it as a hostile move.
There will be no space for Turkish ships to travel through agency without entering the Greek territorial waters.
Doğu Akdeniz'de çözümün yolu diyalog ve müzakeredir.
Μα η Ελλάδα έχει αποδείξει ότι είναι και παραμένει πάντοτε έτοιμη για διάλογο.
The majority of Turks and Greeks also want dialogue. Both their governments are at extreme positions right now. But extreme positions are usually a starting point to finding a middle ground.